And Carl, for the benefit of any new members of our audience who may just have joined us, it seems to me fairly apparent that any reference to these old charges down in Florida is merely intended to be a mechanism for manipulating the system, that they actually, given everything you've explained, have no basis in the law, particularly given that a judge has directed that they be dismissed, and that the Secret Service appears to be managing the situation, possibly with the assistance of Dr. Phillips. Do you have any idea what opinion Phillips may have given about you? Do you think is it the case that according to the Secret Service you're supposed to represent some sort of threat to the safety or security of the President of the United States?
Maybe I should get back to where I left off and then try to maybe sum it up where, Phillips' involvement was given an evaluation for the court, and the court, basically, Dr. Phillips said I was incompetent, so they sent me to a hospital, a Butner hospital.
How long had Phillips examined you?
He came there and talked to me maybe for 1 hour, and then came back the next day for another hour. 3/4 of an hour, his report says. And in August of 2000, after May 31st, 2000, when they denied me bail, a Secret Service agent came to the jail to have me provide a sample of my handwriting to compare it to, the drawings and stuff and some of the words that I put on there. What they did, they were there, the Secret Service came there, and my attorney was there. And another thing I haven't mentioned yet was later in a court motion in July of 2000, they made an allegation in this mental health evaluation. The government put a motion before the court to conduct a mental health evaluation. And one of the paragraphs in the court motion was that I supposedly told the Secret Service about a dead body I had disposed of in Florida. And then they made up, they used this, I didn't know at the time, as a pretext for obtaining a search warrant to my former residence in Alexandria. And in the search warrant, they were looking for a handgun that was supposedly used in this murder. And then what they did is they confiscated my computer, my files, my CD-ROMs, other drawings I had from my former residence in Alexandria, Virginia. And later, my lawyer challenged the accusation because he was there and he knew I didn't tell him anything about a body, but I didn't know at the time. And they amended the motion. They took out the statement. There was a letter from my lawyer I later obtained denying that paragraph 6 of the motion in which they mentioned that I told the Secret Service agent in the presence of my attorney that it'd be a matter of time before they find the body in Florida. And then in other documents I later obtained, they were looking for knives used in a murder. Actually, they took 2 fishing knives from my residence, said there was blood and tissue on it, in which they sent to the FBI laboratory in Washington, D.C. They even tested it and said there was no blood. But I believe that story was used as a pretext to get a search warrant and to confiscate my computer and other belongings that I had.
Why do you think they've taken this special interest in you?
I don't know. A lot of it, I have said, that has my view to do with America and the deception going back to the Maine and the Lusitania. And I believe that the Third World War, I'd known about this plan for 3 world wars, that the Third World War would start on a false terror attack, just like Pearl Harbor and the Lusitania. And I had made references back then in some of my letters that Bush would probably set off a nuke or create an incident in order to start, what would become World War III. And I had said that several occasions in 2000 and also once in December 1999. Maybe that was a reason. I don't know.
That's very interesting because I have several guests on the show, and there are a number of other students of 9/11 who believe that the Bush administration is very probably going to, launch another false flag operation, possibly with a nuclear weapon, to justify the suspension of the Constitution and placing the country under military law and even attacking Iran. In fact, today we saw the resignation of Admiral Fallon, who had dedicated himself to the opposition of any military action against Iran. And I'm afraid that this is a very bad sign because it means that the Bush and Cheney are removing the highest military officer who could oppose them in attacking Iran. I mean, this is an administration that seems to compound one horrendous blunder with another. If our invasion of Iraq is the greatest military catastrophe in U.S. history, it could only be topped by an attack on Iran. And I think there's quite a consensus among military and political and historical experts that this is the case if it's something they pursue. So removing Fallon, seems to be a step in that direction. The things you're saying, I mean, Webster Tarpley, for example, has talked about this. Captain Eric May, a former Army intelligence officer, on this very program has 3 or 4 times discussed these kinds of operations and cases where we believe an effort has been made but has been eclipsed up to this point. It hasn't happened, but it's a very common view among students of 9/11 who have been putting the pieces together in terms of the modus operandi of this administration, which means, in my opinion, that your views aren't all that extraordinary, and there's certainly nothing about them that suggests any lack of mental balance. I think it's the claim that somebody is mentally ill or whatnot is a very easy one to make. I gather it was done in the Soviet Union all the time with political opponents in order to banish them. And I think that you seem to fit this mold. I mean, if I have to guess, what's going on with you is that they have seized upon you as an illustration, a mini version of something they are very desperate to oppose, namely any discussion or articulation of the idea that the administration could be contemplating launching another false flag operation. My goodness, if you go to 911scholars.org and go onto our press releases, you'll find a couple press releases, one related to the so-called Kenny Bunkport warning, and another related to the idea, a memorandum that was being circulated among prominent Republican politicians a year or so ago, where they were saying how a second false flag attack, another attack on the United States, could salvage Bush's sagging political fortunes and help the political party. So there are even prominent Republicans who are endorsing the very idea of doing this. Stand by. This is Jim Fetzer, your host on the Dynamic Duo.